Hello everybody, it's Harry Boxer, the Technical Trader at thetechtrader.com. It is Wednesday, the 26th of January. Well, it was a good day on Wall Street. I'm not sure I believe it, but the bottom line is you got to trade what you see, not what you think. And what I'm seeing is, and let's take a look at it this way, from the S&P 500, looking at a 15-minute chart. We have broken the downtrend, reversed in an inverse head and shoulders, formed a little platform after our pullback today, and we've closed up in that zone. Now there's resistance here, and surely with Apple mixed in some oil dramatically lower and the ultra shorts moving higher again, this is the possibility that we could gap down and break down through support. So tomorrow morning, I want everyone to keep their eyes on around the 1860 level, starting off with, of course, around 1876 and then 1860, 62 zone. Those are key levels. If we do come down and rally off of that level, I think we're headed up towards 1930 to 1950. I don't know how long this extends. Let's just say that the rally has right now been about 4 days into it, and we could see 1 to 3 days more. But at some point, we do have a potentiality of a much deeper pullback. Although a lot of evidence there that this was an important short-term low, we won't know until it extends whether or not it's anything more than that. That's the NASDAQ, that's the S&P 500. So let's go back to where I wanted to go over, and that is reviewing about 15 longs and 15 shorts. So it's a long video, so sit back and relax, and let's go over this. ABX, as gold is finally coming to the forefront, it appears. Certain stocks in that group are acting well, in particular ABX, which if you look at the long-term chart, has been moving down on a weekly chart since it was in its 60s in 2011. A massive drop here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves in my opinion, and now the potential turnaround, basing type action, good volume the last few days. That's traded well over 100 million shares just in the last 4 sessions, and it's moved up towards the declining tops line. Watch this level around the 10.5 area. We get through that, it could be a much more substantial move. Another is AU, that's Anglo Gold, and this is a South African miner that apparently some of these miners that you'll be seeing today are benefiting by the exchange rates. But this one, if you're looking at the weekly chart, you can see it's been a stock that's also dropped from the mid-50s down to the 5.5 range, long, big drop. However, it appears that the declining tops line of the last year and a half or so may have been pierced today with a breakaway gap, and we'll see if we can get this up towards the $10 range, and secondary target will be up around just under 12. Now those are potential targets if gold continues its move. Now moving over to the oil sector, there's only a couple I want to show you. There's a lot of oil stocks that acted great, but I believe they're coming down tomorrow based on inventory and other data that I've been reading. EOG is a real quality long-term goal oil stock, that at one time was trading up 120 plus. It's had a 5-wave decline, and I was reading today about their assets all being in the United States, and none of them are. Well, let's put it this way. Also, in addition to that, the company fundamentally is extremely solid. Some people, particularly Ali, I believe, knows a lot about this stock. Recently, it's dropped from the high 80s down to the mid 50s. And then this big rebound, pullback, and then retest. But I'm not recommending oil stocks here. I'm just saying that they could be in a bottoming process. It could take some retesting or even lower lows first. I want to see if there's a follow through to the upside. My targets in this are 74 and 80. But for now, I'm going to need to see if they do get a follow through, particularly if it gets to the 67.5 range that it hit 3 days ago or 2 days ago. So watch this one carefully with support around 61. ETE is another exchange energy transfer, has had a nice long drop, taking it from 35 down to 6.5. Big reversal, then another reversal downward. And you can see that this reversed back up again today, but I'm going to be very careful before I call a low. It looked like a low in here, didn't it? And then it dropped down, so it could very well even make lower lows in the mid-single digits before we get too excited about that. Let's wait to see whether it's able to take out 11.15, which right now seems to be strong resistance. If it gets to 11.15, my targets are 14 and 17. Right near that zone there and there. But we're going to have to see whether we can get a follow through. Now, solar stocks had a very good day and have been acting well the last few days, but First Solar in particular, the leader, jumping 326 or 5% today. Traded a solid nearly 2 million shares. It's not huge volume for that stock, so I'm still a little skeptical since there's resistance here. We may see a pullback on them, but right now the short-term resistance was the high from 2 weeks ago when it traded up around 72, then 75, and then 80. Another gold stock, GFI, also I believe South African, broke out. The declining top line was broken a couple weeks ago and then pulled back, held, and today gapped up. The near-term targets are about 3 3/4, followed by 4 3/4. Big move today on IIVI. We traded that nicely today, but the stock did consolidate most of the session after an early pop and then closed strong. 1953 up 253. That was a 15% gainer. There's almost 5 days to cover. You can see the big resistance in this area. Looks like it's going to try to pop through it. Keep an eye on this one. Long-term pattern shows a massive kind of inverse head and shoulders in here over the last 4 years, which could move this into the low to mid 20s and then maybe even higher than that if it breaks out across this band of resistance. The gold ETFs, JNUG and NUGT, have been up 5 days in a row on pretty good volume, but now approaching resistance. We need to see whether this can get to the 2830 zone before getting too excited about it on JNUG. And on Nugget, that's already up near resistance, doing a little bit better, also up 5 days in a row in strong volume. But again, with the declining top line lateral resistance on this one, I'd be careful about 28 and 31. Above 31, maybe a new ball game for this one. One stock that just stands out in my mind is Primo Water. In the last couple of years, you can see how this stock has had a phenomenal run from under $1 to nearly 10. Tenfold increase. And yet, after that kind of a run, it's consolidated nicely and moving up again. Today up 56 cents or 6.5%. That one may very well move higher, and if it does, my target's up near 12. If it was more trading more volume, I may put a swing on it, and I still may. A third oil I like a lot is Range Resources. Just acts great. This strong thrust, followed by this one-day pullback, was then reversed back up again today. So it's acting very well in here near resistance, but I need to see it break through the declining tops line, which may be suspect if it breaks off tomorrow. Keep an eye on this one for an intermediate move to the mid to high 30s, maybe 40, if we do get any kind of major move in oil. Another gold stock is SBGL, which is just phenomenal. The last 3 weeks going from 6 to 9.5 nearly today. And you can see how there's resistance right in that zone. If gold stocks do back off, I suspect that would be a good buy in this pullback, and it is a little short-term extended. Next target's 11.5. Another solar stock acting great is SEDG Solar Edge. Wall Street seems to really like this one. Got a nice recovery from the November lows near 15 all the way up to 30, doubling, and then the pullback towards 21 or so, giving back about a third of its gain. Now the real snapback has occurred, taking it back above resistance. Looks to me like your next target's going to be about 30, followed by 34. Swift Energy with a nice report today and exploded out with short covering 10 days to cover. You can see why it may have had that move, but with 16 million shares, I have to at least keep an eye on this one as it may have had a major breakout through the 50-day lateral price resistance and the declining tops line in the last 2 sessions. My near-term target, 1760.65. We may reach that tomorrow. The secondary target will be up near 20.5, 3/4, something like that. And finally, on the long side, Zoomies is acting just great in here. This retailer's had a nice base pattern forming. What really impresses me is not only did it break its major declining tops line, having come down from the low 40s to the 11.5 range, but now forming a base pattern with a rising on-balance volume and improving technicals. Of course, we do have a problem getting to 18.5, 19 zone. Once we do that, you can fill the gap, maybe make a run at 22, and eventually 24 or 25. But I do think it's got a good shot at a 45th percent gain once it breaks out. Now let's turn our attention to what I want to look at on the box and short side. And there's a lot of them, but I managed to pare down this list for tonight. Acadia. Look, there's no question that's a topping pattern and it broke here. This is the first rebound off key support, but it doesn't look very good. It looks like a bear wedge, and the technicals look terrible. Barely a bounce in the technicals. If it comes down and takes that 21 range, we could see the stock head into the mid-teens. AMAG, another biotech that has dropped dramatically from the high 70s, all the way down to the low 20s, and yet barely bouncing in here. I don't think it's done on the downside, particularly if we get any kind of bear phase. This could very well test somewhere around 17. M-Surge recently put out as a boxer swing short. That little bear flag got me interested. This little bear wedge has me interested. I'm looking for a move down to high 50s. Brookdale. I don't understand why it continues to drop, but nevertheless, this has been in a bear trend since April of last year when it was 40. It's dropped all the way down to 14, and yet, if that's the best the bulls can do, this stock has a shot at going even lower. The next target is down about 11. Some new stocks I put on my list today after doing some studying and reading some research. 3 banks in the oil patch that are really in trouble in terms of their assets and bank debts. Here's the bottom line. Upwards of 10 to 30% of all the loans that they have with their oil companies could be in default. And these stocks have absolutely collapsed lately. If you take a look at this one, 75 to 45 in just a couple months. Now, what I'd like to see from a long-term standpoint, as you can see, it's broken down. Let's get some kind of snapback to resistance in the low 50s before we consider shorting it. But it's something I want to consider because I think ultimately if oil goes up and these recover, we could be setting up for something in the mid to high 30s on BOK Financial. Cullen Frost Bankers is another. Look at this collapse. The rollover and the sharp move down may indeed be oversold short term, but if this bounces back towards 50, 52, I would consider shorting it. Keep an eye on this one. And the last one in that sector is Zion Bancorp. All of them look very similar. They're all collapsing. They've also had dramatic drops. I would look for a move back up towards 23.5, 24. They're about to short this one for something down in the mid to high teens. Moving on with my short list. Educational stocks, as you know, to me are looking terrible and continue to look terrible. And this one, after collapsing in early January, has spent 2 weeks forming in yet another rising bear wedge. I think at some point you're going to see this stock in the low 30s. Creato, on my list for a long time now, dropped back almost 4.4% today in a rising market. Not a good sign. You can see that the angle of descent is calling for a move on this one to get down. Oh, it looks to me like around 23 to 24. If we get any kind of move back up towards 32.3, that would be something to consider. DeVry, another educational stock along with CPLA, also has the same pattern and looks lower to me. Target 18. Global Payments, the stock I put out as a short right there, came down to the target and bounced. Has formed yet another bear wedge. And with leg 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm looking for leg 5 down at 51-ish. INGN, another biotech looking lousy. After the hidden shoulder top broke and the bear wedge formed, yet another mini bear wedge is forming. I'm looking for 28 to 29, 30 range. Polaris got crushed today, losing 7.35 or 9%. It reached my target short term, so I wouldn't be too aggressive with it, but it does look like it's collapsing. And if it breaks to this level, we have a shot at taking this down dramatically from here. Something is very wrong there. This is that snowmobile manufacturer getting wiped. PSIX, still in a dramatic downtrend, looks lower to me. I would look for single digits, high nines thereabout. Papa John's, after the bear wedge formed and I gave you a short, it dropped from 58 down to 45, 46 zone, and guess what? It's forming another bear wedge. Now, looking at the long term, you can see the stock has a long way to drop. And if it breaks this zone down here, which it bounced off of when it hit there, ultimately, I would have to give you a target around 38, 37, 38. But let's see what occurs on a short-term basis here. Red Robin Gourmet, again, I short every bounce. This stock looks to me like high 40s or worse. And then that pretty much concludes our video for today. There's some awful ugly stuff out there, but there's some interesting stuff on the long side too. I had a friend of mine say there's no way you can trade long and short at the same time. I say we can, and we will. This is HB signing off.